If you were to ask a Ratchet & Clank veteran what they thought was the worst weapon in the entirety of the franchise, you'd probably get a unanimous response as to what that is. Personally, I'd say the Spitting Hydra from Ratchet & Clank 3 is the worst, due to bad scaling and generally middling damage. But most commonly the response you're going to get would be the Meteor Gun from Ratchet & Clank 2, due to the way it changed the lava gun from a flamethrower type weapon to a, well, very terrible blaster. So that got me thinking, is it really as bad as we think it is? Join me in me questioning if the Meteor Gun was bad as we remember. Now here we start on the desert planet of Tabora, where, along with the most overpowered weapon in the entirety of the franchise, the Bouncer, contains the lava gun in this vendor for just 25,000 bolts, which is pretty cheap. Now, the lava gun is a nice flamethrower type weapon. It does some pretty good damage, especially to weaker mobs, but the scaling is actually fairly good. You can use this weapon late game if you need to, but there's some extra tricks you can do with the lava gun here. You can spin around to hit a lot of enemies in a wide variety around you. You can flip in the air to hit airborne enemies and deal a significant amount of damage. So the lava gun is a pretty good flexible weapon. Now, a great testament to the ammo capacity and rate of this weapon is the fact that I was able to level it up in one session without having to buy ammo in this desert with its enemies that don't really drop too much experience. Didn't have to buy ammo, just able to do this with just the crates that you find in the level, which don't give that much ammo, 20 to 40, but that's really all we need here. And of course, upon leveling up your weapon, you're greeted with the familiar flash of light and electricity, and you will see that you have upgraded your weapon to one that is, presumably, a lot worse than what it is. So, what makes the Meteor Gun really bad in this situation? Well, let's start with the obvious, the fact that this weapon is extremely inaccurate and inconsistent, considering that it has a huge spread, that much of a shotgun or something like that, but it's a blaster type weapon. As you saw right there, I was right in front of an enemy and missed completely, which is absolutely inexcusable for a weapon that you've actually leveled up from a very consistent weapon. Now, damage-wise, this weapon actually is not that bad. As you can see, it takes out those big flying whatchamacallits in 3 hits, and it takes out these little ones in 1 hit. Now, if you compare this to the lava gun takes out the big ones in 4 hits, and the little ones in 2 hits. It's a bit of an upgrade. I wouldn't consider it that much though. Now, you are at the mercy of RNG when fighting ranged enemies with this weapon. As you can see here, I am missing all of these shots, despite the fact that, it's a simple blaster weapon, it should hit all of them. And I have to wait for the enemy to actually fly down, which a lot of enemies do not actually do in this game, as they like to stay at range. But this is just one planet. Let's see how well the Meteor Gun fares against a lot of other planets. And yes, this is what it looks like when shooting at range. It is really not as consistent as it seems here. Next up is planet Dubbo, the Megacorp testing facility. Now, the first enemies we see here that aren't fodder, which I'll be kind of skipping over because they're generally weak, are these security drones, which only take 2 shots if they hit to kill, which is actually fairly admirable considering that they have quite a bit of health. Now, the basic Megacorp security troopers also take 2 hits. This is probably a bit overkill in terms of damage, but it works fine for now, as long as you can get close to them, which may be an issue later, but for now, the Meteor Gun works fine. But here we see a problem with the Meteor Gun being that it can't actually fight anything long range that is of importance. As you can see, this tank here, which should be an easy target for a blaster type weapon, can't even be touched by the Meteor Gun, it's so far away. So you're going to have to rely on something that has a bit more range than that. So that's -1 point for the Meteor Gun's versatility and the fact that it can't fight range. But you see here, damage is not the issue with this weapon at all. As you can see, this tank, which I can actually hit, dies in like 4 shots, I believe, if I'm counting correctly. But because it's hard to kind of see how many shots it takes due to the fact that they generally miss a lot. With Dubbo behind us, we get into planet Joba, and the enemies here are pretty weak to the Meteor Gun's damage, dying to 2 hits as, well, a blaster weapon should definitely deal a lot less damage than that, but this is the Meteor Gun, which is a definite exception to that rule. Now, the only new enemy on planet Tadano of note is this armored guy who shoots pretty heavy bullets, but he dies fairly easily. I believe it was 3 to 4 shots. Yeah, pretty simple, not really worth talking about. Meteor Gun is still a viable weapon by now. Now, planet Bolton is perhaps where the Meteor Gun starts to become actually good, because one of the biggest problems with the Meteor Gun, of course, has been its accuracy, as its damage and, ammunition is very reliable. So after the grind section here, and yes, it has to be after this one and not on any of the other planets, for one measly little platinum bolt, you can buy a lock-on mod for the lava gun. You can also buy an acid mod, which also increases its viability, but this makes the lava gun become a very competent weapon. So this is the exact moment when the Meteor Gun goes from being a complete joke to a total powerhouse. As you can see here, with this lock-on mod, it actually fixes how the projectiles fly, as in they go directly into the enemies, mostly. It does aim a bit at the ground sometimes, but yes, this is exactly what the Lancer should have been. With, still 200 ammo, nice damage, long-ish range. As you can see here, the only downside you have to do is hold the L2 and R2 buttons constantly, which, yes, it does get annoying, but you'll be able to deal with it because you have a super powerful weapon which will now probably tear through most of the enemies in this game. As you can see here, they're destroying brutes and thugs like absolutely no issues. Most of the enemies you see here will just be cleaved through by the Meteor Gun. Aside from their little invincibility frames these enemies have, they fall incredibly quickly to the Meteor Gun's power. These helicopters you see on planet Snivelac you're not even supposed to kill can easily be destroyed by them. Granted, the back two did get damaged in this clip by a nanotech upgrade, but still, they would have died anyway, so it's kind of pointless to say otherwise. And finally, these little tanks you see here, now that they're actually on the ground and in a, line of sight of the Meteor Gun, they can die pretty quickly. So, yeah. Not gonna be much cover for these little enemies here, they can also just be picked off afterwards. Not even a problem for the Meteor Gun here. Now, here comes the biggest problem, you'd think. Oh no, there's a tank over there and it's being backed up by a helicopter. Well, you're probably going to get hit by at least one of them, or maybe even something that wasn't even a problem like I did. But you'd probably think, oh no, you need like a rocket launcher or something to take care of him. Nope, the Meteor Gun is just so good in its lock-on that you can just snipe him right out of the sky. The only enemy that seems to not crumble before the power of the Meteor Gun is the Thug Leader and his stupid mech thing, which is one of the hardest bosses in all of Ratchet & Clank history. Just kidding, because in case you did not know, the tank bot being able to spam bombs like this and get really close with no retaliation is the easiest way to kill this boss by far. Now, Planet Smolg brings us to the twin-headed Beast of Yore, which has a nasty counterattack, meaning that you'll want to be dealing with it with burst damage, and it takes 3 hits. The only thing is that there's no real downside to this because the Meteor Gun does enough damage so that you can not get hit by the counterattack by just repeatedly shooting, even if they are directly in your face like this. Now, the infamous planet Grelban, due to its damn snow beasts that I'm pretty sure everybody hates. Hell, they got an award for it. You'd think this would be a huge problem, but no, actually. While the Meteor Gun does take 4 shots to actually kill them, the fact of the matter is that it actually stuns them when it hits, meaning that you can effectively stun lock these enemies, so they're not really a problem unless you're faced with like 3 of them at once. Also, the fact that the lock-on for getting onto these giant leviathans is hard to get on, because I don't know why. Maybe it's just that the PS3 version is a glitchy mess of this game, as Ratchet likes to turn invisible in this section for some reason. But, yeah. The Leviathans aren't really that much of a threat for you. Now, Planet Damocel has 2 different enemies, one of them being this standard exterminator bot, which really was not a threat, and for once, the fodder enemies actually were the downside of the Meteor Gun here, due to the fact that protopets like to multiply if you don't kill them, and the Meteor Gun has absolutely no AoE potential. Okay, it had a little, but it's not reliable. Another downside is the fact that the protopets glitched out and would not disappear, meaning that even if I killed them, I could not progress. Great job, PS3 Remastered developers, you really did a good job on this one. But yeah, other than that glitchy mess, the Meteor Gun had absolutely no problem dealing with this planet. Even its wonky lock-on managed to kill the enemies that were standing up on the sniper point, so that's always good. Finally, Planet Yeedle is when the Meteor Gun goes from dealing a lot of damage to dealing pretty average damage, but to be fair, these are tanks, and the damage of this game requirement is, it really scales up on the late game, where weapons like the hover bomb gun are pretty much the only weapon that can deal damage enough to kill these things in relatively short time. Other than, of course, the heavy bouncer, because, of course, yeah, most overpowered weapon in the series. But the one thing that's great about this gun is I pretty much went through the entirety of this level with only using the Meteor Gun for damage, and I only ran out of ammo. I didn't even buy any ammo, I'm pretty sure. The only time I ran out was in this final hallway, and I had to kill 3 robots, so good job, Meteor Gun. If you can go through the entirety of the final level pretty solid, that's a really admirable point of, power. So how well does the Meteor Gun do against the final boss? The answer is actually fairly well, but, this boss is one of the weaker ones of the franchise. I decided to just use the Meteor Gun for this boss as my only weapon, and yeah, it actually worked. Well, aside from the fact that, I ran out of ammo, because, just bad luck and, well, you know what, I wouldn't call it bad luck, I just call it not dealing enough damage. If I spaced it out and used the acid mod properly, I probably would have done it, but I was impatient. So yeah, I used the tractor beam because why not, it's a good meme. And the final conclusion to this, getting some ammo and shooting the boss, is that the game glitched out and did not play the final cutscene. So, yeah. What an anticlimactic ending, I know. So in conclusion, is the Meteor Gun from Ratchet & Clank 2 a bad weapon? No, it isn't. But is it as good as the liquid nitrogen gun from Ratchet & Clank 3? Also no. That gun is just pretty much the exact weapon that we wanted, but we didn't get in the sequel. At least they got it on the right on the 3rd try. Well, I hope you enjoyed this video. I don't know if I'll be making more like it. This was kind of just a spur-of-the-moment type thing, so yeah. Subscribe if you enjoy or something like that. I'm not good with outros. Goodbye.